This is Steve Cochran, and this is Live from my office. I'm thrilled that you're here, always, and I appreciate it very much, whether it's here on the podcast or on the radio, every morning on the Big 89 WLS in Chicago, or wherever you listen around the world. You know, we're in, I think, over 15 countries on Live from my office, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of towns and villages and bus stops. But in any way you consume whatever comes out of my mouth, it's highly appreciated. But that sounded wrong on a lot of levels. We continue the sports theme, if you will, on Live from my office this week. Last week we talked about gambling on March Madness the legal way. This time around, let's talk baseball, because it's spring when a young man's fancy turns to baseball and other things that we're not covering on this episode. We'll talk with Mike Ferrin from Power Alley. It's the show he hosts on the MLB Network on Sirius XM Radio, Channel 89, every morning at 9 o'clock. That's Central Time. And he does a terrific job. He worked with me and for me, and he's a friend forever. And we'll talk about the teams, where we think they're going to end up, the great players like Shohei Ohtani, which is Japanese for Babe Ruth's got nothing on me. And also the rules changes, and there's a ton of them. As a matter of fact, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but if baseball is going to go with a pitch clock and rules changes, why can't the other sports do something similar as well? So just see what you think of a couple of rules changes I just scratched out just a minute or two ago. Let's start with the National Football League. Everybody goes, football, that's hard to improve on football. Well, the end of the first half, there's always wasted timeouts. So here's my suggestion. It's just brainstorming, no bad ideas. But instead of leaving timeouts on the board, entertain the fans, sort of a fan appreciation, and take care of your least appreciated players as well. Take a timeout for a new feature that I like to call Special Teams Got Talent. It's essentially a talent show featuring special teams players who almost never get in the game. Could be singing, could be dancing, could be any sort of act whatsoever. Special Teams Got Talent. Now, that's football. What about hockey? I love hockey, and again, what do you do to fix hockey or improve hockey? Hockey's been very liberal in the way they've changed up their own rules. The overtime rule recently, over the last few years, makes the game exciting. Here's what I'm thinking for hockey. Hockey, if you get more than 2 penalties in a game, in other words, if you become a penalty pain in the ass, instead of wearing the traditional headgear of the helmet, you have to don a full furry costume. And I'm talking furries right from the fetish. And the other team gets to pick what you're wearing. Maybe you're a cute bunny. Maybe you're a rabid wolf. Maybe you're an owl. The other team picks it, and there you go. All right, one more, basketball. What do you do to change it up with basketball? Here's what I like. At any point during the game, and it could happen at any time, but at any point during the game, the play comes to a stop on the court, and you are called down to the court to play in the game, thus interrupting the story you were telling your girlfriend or your wife or your date about what it was like when you played the game. So your glory days story gets interrupted, and then you have to play against the world's best in the NBA. Just a couple of quick ideas. Baseball's changing it up. Why not the other sports? That's the kind of help I provide here on Live from my office. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen. It's appreciated. Drop me a note anytime. thecochranshow@gmail.com is the way you email me. And I look forward to you telling me what you think of this. An interview with Mike Ferrin on the new baseball season now on Live from my office. All right, very important information coming now from my good friend Mike Ferrin, MLB Network Radio, Power Alley, every morning. What time?
9 a.m. Central Time.
All right, that's perfect for me because that's the time I'm off the radio, so we don't compete, and we have very similar audiences, as you know.
There's a lot of overlap between, I think, where you are and what I do, at least demographically.
Yeah, well, I mean, professional smartassery. You're still in that business, so that's fine.
Listen, I learned from the best.
Yeah, well, you were paying attention, young man. So listen, Mike Ferrin, you've been a force, and I mean that, and you won't accept the compliment, but you've been a force at MLB Network Radio for a long time, and now you're doing the World Baseball Classic. So let me start there. How big a deal is the World Baseball Classic, and outside of the baseball world, are people starting to get it?
Yeah, so I think how big a deal is it? I would say that it's still growing in popularity. So what do we had? 2006, 2009, 2013, 2017. We've done this, right? So this is the fifth one.
Uh-huh.
I think it has grown in terms of importance and exposure every time that they've done it. This pushed a couple of years later, first because of COVID and then because of the lockout. So it's been 6 years since we've had it, but I think there's a growing interest in it. I mean, it's nice to have baseball games with professionals that count during spring training, because there's nothing that's important about the way the game is played during spring training, so like that part is cool. So I think it's growing in that regard. As to how it's to non-baseball fans, it's a good question. I don't know how much it's growing with them yet. I feel like it's one of those things that has to take hold with the hardcore audience first, and then like there's more word of mouth. I will say that there has been more coverage leading up to this. There's been more buzz about it. There's been more excitement about it, and I think the only thing that kind of has gone wrong is that instead of having it every 4 years, it's been like 6 years between it.
So you mentioned Shohei Ohtani. I want to go over some of these biggest stories in the league, or the potential biggest stories in the league. Ohtani, I understand we have a language barrier and we have interpreters, and all of those things. But, playing in Anaheim shouldn't be as big a barrier as it appears to be for him not being the world's most famous athlete. He's doing something now for the past couple of years which nobody could do, and that is to be a top-flight pitcher and a top-flight hitter, both ends of the game in sports. I mean, you tell me, but the equivalent for me is you're the middle linebacker and the quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You're playing offense and defense, right? So I think it's, I think his star power is pretty big internationally, at least in baseball playing countries, right? Like he's the biggest draw in Japan. He'd be the biggest draw in just about any country. He's the biggest draw in the U.S. right now because what you said, like if you're going to go see the Angels, you're going to see Ohtani, right? Because he's either going to be DHing or he's going to be pitching, and he's going to be hitting in all those games. And he's one of the top hitters in the league. So I think that there's that growing part of it. I do think that there is an element of it is difficult for baseball players because of the length of the season and the fact that it is every day for them to even be able to carve out the time to do commercials and to be marketable.
Yeah.
So I think that might be part of it. But like we're also heading into a year where Ohtani is a free agent, and the team that he's playing for hasn't been to the postseason since 2014. And he has started to make known that his goal is to win. And you're also looking at a guy who probably is going to get the biggest free agent contract in any professional sport ever. I mean, it probably will dwarf the total dollar value of Patrick Mahomes' contract with the Chiefs, because he does. I mean, like Babe Ruth didn't do this
right
for as long as Shohei Ohtani has, right? Like that's what's incredible about it. So I think you're going to continue to see his star grow. 21 is when it really felt like it started to explode. Last year was another sensational season, and he's going to be the preseason favorite to win American League MVP, and is one of the favorites to win the Cy Young Award too. So it's really, I think it's starting to get there. It just takes a few years with baseball, and I think maybe the World Baseball Classic even helped show exactly how immensely talented Shohei Ohtani is and how exciting it is for everybody to see this just absolute freak. I mean, he's one of the fastest guys in the league. Like,
which is crazy,
go figure, right? I mean, it's nuts. Like dude, he's huge. Like if he had grown up in the States, he probably would either be like a small forward or a tight end in addition to playing baseball, right? Like he's that kind of massive, strong, quick twitch individual. He's incredible. He's absolutely incredible.
I'm glad he didn't pick hockey. It'd be hard to play goalie and winger at the same time, but he probably would have pulled that off as well.
You would have just played the band winger.
All right, let me talk to you about the new rules changes, because it's a big story this year in baseball, and nothing bigger than the pitch clock. I don't like some of the things baseball has done in the past few years. You start a runner at second base in extras. The second game of a doubleheader was a 7-inning game. I was just waiting for Mom to bring out the orange slices early. But these rules changes seem to be working early. Are you at all concerned about this pitch clock? It does seem like it's in principle and on paper helpful.
Yeah, they've got about 8,000 games worth of data on this from the minor leagues, because this isn't just something that they, threw at everybody. They've been using the pitch clock in the minor leagues for a number of seasons, and they've used a more aggressive one the last 2 years. And last year in particular, they really started to enforce it, right? So they've been testing this for a while. And what we found was that games were about 20 plus minutes. I think it was 25 minutes shorter on average. So just to give you some context, the average time of game last season was 3 hours and 3 minutes. The average time of game in 1985 was 2 hours and 38 minutes,
wow.
I believe.
Wow.
So, you're looking at the potential to have the shortest average time of game in 40 years. Now, there are a lot of people that I shouldn't say there's a lot. There are a few people. It's always it's like 1 in 8, I would say, or maybe 1 in 7 people that seem to complain about the pitch clock, because they're like, well, I don't want a clock on baseball. It should be paced the way it is, who clearly have Stockholm syndrome over what it was like versus what it is now.
Right.
Because the thing is, you're not getting less baseball. It's not tougher to get concessions. There's none of that. You're getting the same amount. You're just getting the action more compressed. I've had experience with it because I've done Arizona Fall League games for a number of years, and they really tested this aggressive one 2 years ago. I filled in the minor league some last year, so I get to see it in action. And it makes, in my opinion, for a much better product, because there's not it's eliminated the stand around and wait, or the step out of the box and take a deep breath and take 30 seconds to gather yourself, or the pitcher walking around the mound. It's made it more about getting to the action quicker. And I think, I was just talking to somebody from the league 2 days ago who's one of the people that's in charge of putting this into play. And he's a former player. And he said, for the most part, with the exception of a couple of people who's maybe complained on Twitter, the players have been pretty receptive to it and to making these adjustments, because I think they understand that it's more important and that it's important. And I think one of the reasons it's important is that baseball is trying to get younger in their audience. It is the oldest audience of any of the professional sports. And if you're playing every day, essentially every day for 6 months, asking somebody to commit 3 to 3.5 hours of time to that game is very difficult. This is going to eliminate the 4-hour slogs that we've had that have become more prevalent over the last decade. There's still going to be some 3-hour games, but there's going to be a lot more that are shorter that allow you maybe to keep your kids up to the end of it, or keep your kids at the game longer, or get people who think that baseball is slow to at least pay a little bit more attention to it, because they don't have to commit 21 hours in a week to watching the games. So I think overall it's a net positive, and I don't know that it's going to move quite at the breakneck pace it has at spring training. I think once guys get comfortable with how long 20 seconds actually is with men on base, I think it'll slow a little. But even if we get the average time of game to around 2:45, it would be a huge win for the sport.
Yeah, and the situation is specifically what? 15 seconds from the time I get the ball back on the mound, and you got to be in the box in less than that?
Yes. So with nobody on base, it's 15 seconds to start your delivery for the pitcher, and the batter needs to be in the box with 8 seconds to go. And alert to the pitcher. They can't be doing housekeeping, right? Can't be picking up the dirt. With men on base, the pitcher has 20 seconds, but again, with 8 seconds to go, the hitter needs to be ready to go. So there's still, if you think about it, if you just count quietly to yourself 20, that's more than enough time to get ready.
No, I totally agree. But it is a big change for guys that have taken all day and have learned a rhythm of taking all day.
I think it's a bigger deal for the hitters too, because I think there has been so much emphasis on trying to slow the game down mentally that it has slowed the game down. Because if you watch them step out after every pitch and process what their plan is or what they need to do next, that's where the vast majority of the time has gone.
Right.
It's less on the pitchers and more on the hitters.
And though Ted Williams is spinning in his grave because big league hitters couldn't figure out how to hit to wide open sides of the field, it's been implemented by the rules now that you're going to have to actually keep guys on the right side of the bases. I think that's positive. The bigger base is going to be interesting to see if that has a real big impact on the game. But overall, I think it's good. One of the more interesting stories I think that pops out this year to me is the Red Sox could be awful and the Orioles could be great.
Yeah, they could be pretty good. Although let me go back to Ted Williams for a second. You know, Ted Williams used to get shifted on a lot, right? That was the Ted Williams shift, and he never hit the ball the other way. He just kept pulling through.
Bad analogy.
I actually don't think that shift rule is I don't think the shift rule is gonna have much of an impact really overall.
What about Ted Williams? Will he be unfrozen, to correct my analogy?
I mean, we could probably thaw Ted Williams out. He's going to be pretty bad.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah, you don't.
My body. So the Red Sox could be pretty bad, and the Orioles could be pretty good. I think the Orioles they're a little bit similar where the Cubs were in around 2015, I would say. The difference is that the Orioles have not really added the veteran players to put themselves over the top. They spent a little bit modestly this winter as opposed to adding real impact. And so I think there are some chances that it could go wrong, but they are an immensely talented club when it comes to young players. Adley Rutschman is going to be terrific. Already is. Gunnar Henderson is going to be very good. They have more talent coming behind that. So they're going to be good here soon. And the Red Sox have spent a lot of money to put together a roster that leaves us all going, how does this fit? Which means, of course, they'll probably win the pennant.
Yeah, well, and speaking of probably win the pennant, when you think about New York baseball, you think, well, what are the Yankees up to now? The Mets spent, and this is an actual figure, $1.5 bazillion in the offseason, and is it going to get them anywhere?
Well, I mean, they won 101 games last year, right? That they lost to the Padres in the division series. They're a talented team. It's a very difficult division. Atlanta isn't going anywhere. Atlanta also won 101 games last year after winning the World Series the year before. The Phillies won the pennant last year. The Phillies are better, adding Trey Turner to the mix, adding Taijuan Walker. They've gotten better. So it's not going to be easy, but I do think that they are one of the better teams in the National League. I think they have a good chance if they can keep their starting pitching healthy. And the issue with their starting pitching is largely that the two top guys are 40 and nearly 40 in Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. Now, the two of them have 6 Cy Young awards combined, so they're pretty good, but they have to keep those guys on the field. And if they do, they're probably going to have success. But the money isn't an object to them. Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, is the richest owner in sports. $1.5 bajillion is basically like couch cushion money for him.
Right. Change thing in the car. That's where he pulls it out of.
Yeah. It's like he still has a car that has an ashtray in it. He never smoked, but it's filled with change, just in case he needs it for a toll booth. Yeah. I don't know if you know this about Steve Cohen, but he's also an art collector. Do you know that he owns a shark in formaldehyde that's suspended in formaldehyde? That's one of his art pieces. He paid $8 million for it.
We probably need to have the authorities watching him then, don't we? I'm just curious. I mean, I just
want to see the damn shark.
This sounds like a guy that's in a bad Netflix mob movie, but that'll make him interesting. That could make for an interesting season. And meanwhile, out west, the Padres, for casual baseball fans, might be flying under the radar, but they're going to be great, aren't they?
Well, and they're a team that has spent. I mean, they've turned the sport on its ear because they have eschewed this idea that small market owners don't have the money to be able to add star level talent. And that certainly hasn't been the case. They had already signed Fernando Tatis Jr. to a long contract in just his second season. They had Manny Machado on a long contract. He was getting ready to opt out. They extended him. They added Xander Bogaerts. They have Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove signed up long term. And they're going to try and extend Juan Soto and Josh Hader too. So they have some name brand players They're a talented team. They're going to be really fun to watch. And Tatis, who was suspended last year for PED use, is eligible to rejoin the roster on April 20th. All those postseason games counted against his suspension, so he's going to be back before the end of April and playing the outfield. They are going to be fascinating because this is a team that has a chance to be very, very good, and they're in a division that has been dominated by the Dodgers for the last decade. The Dodgers had a much more quiet offseason and just lost their starting shortstop for the year in Gavin Lux to a knee injury.
Which means they may win the division as well.
Right. So they'll be playing the Red Sox in the World Series. That's how this works.
Yeah, that really is how it works. But that's one of the things that's fascinating about baseball is just when you think you got it all figured out. We will lay out our annual tradition of making predictions. I seal them up in an envelope, and then I try to remember to open them in October or November, such as the case may be. We'll do that. But I got to talk to you about the Cubs and the White Sox. We've got this show coming up on March 23rd where I'm going to do my Steve Cochran radio show live on stage, not on the air, at 7 o'clock at night. The great Kerry Wood's coming out. He is among the guests who will be there live that night. Woody's one of the best guys in Cubs history, not just because of the 20 strikeout game, but he's just a good dude, and he still does good things with his foundation, and he's a good guy. Doesn't make any trouble for you. He's got great stories, and had he stayed healthy, who knows how good he could have been.
Yeah, terrific guy. Excited that you get to do that. I'm disappointed that people are going to have the image of you in pants in public. I'm assuming that you're going to have to wear pants since you're doing the show live.
It's disappointing. Right? It's disappointing, but what are you going to do? I mean, that's really the biggest story that comes out of this. But before we do the Cubs here, the White Sox were maybe the most disappointing story of 2022. Are they going to turn this around?
So I actually really like them. I think they lack some depth, and that's a big concern, and it should be a concern for everyone. But they hired, I think, one of the brightest baseball minds there is in Pedro Grifol. He's just super sharp. He was a catcher in college at Florida State. He played for the great Mike Martin there. He's held just about every job in baseball from a field standpoint. He's been a hitting coach. He's been a hitting coordinator for the minor leagues. He's been a field coordinator in the minor leagues. He's been a farm director overlooking the minor leagues. He's managed the minors. He's scouted. He's just a really bright dude. And the word out of White Sox camp was that there is a different level of accountability that players are being held to in terms of getting their preparation. And I think he's going to pay big dividends. There were some similarities, the way it was described to me, to what Ricky Renteria did when he was there in terms of trying to get the most out of a couple of their guys. So I think it's going to be a good team. I think it's tough to sleep on them because there's still so much talent on the roster. And like Luis Robert could explode at any moment and become one of the 10 best players in baseball. And I think a healthy Eloy Jimenez is going to be an impactful middle of the order hitter. I just think they have a number of guys who underachieved, who didn't put up the numbers that you expect that are on the back of their baseball card. The one thing that could derail them is health, which is part of what did them in last year. If they can stay healthy, I think they have a very good chance to win that division.
All right, and on the other side of town, of course, are the Cubs. We don't know who the Cubs are. We don't know who's going to show up. It sort of feels like it did when you and I worked together every day in the aughts, kids, when the Cubs couldn't decide if they were rebuilding or if they're going to bring in a name here or there. They got talent on this team, right?
Yeah, some. It's a reinvigoration or a reawakening. I don't know. Every time we try and come up with a word to describe what the Cubs are doing, it ends up sounding like USA's Up All Night and like the description of those movies they used to run, or like a dime store novel. Yeah, they're fine. I mean, they're just like, I've been having this argument with a lot of people. I don't think they're that much better than they were last year. They just have a lot of names that are different. Last year they signed more major league free agents than any other team, and they won 74 games, right? They had a good second half, but it was a soft schedule. I think the Cubs front office is realistic about the fact that they feel like they're better than they were a year ago, but they're not necessarily one of the top teams in the Central. Dansby Swanson's a nice player. He's a really good defender. I think this team is going to catch the ball. but their rotation doesn't miss a lot of bats. I'm not sure who the most impactful offensive player is for them. And I think their bullpen is solid. In fact, I think it might even be a little bit underappreciated how solid their pen is. But it's just kind of like, if things break right, they could be around 500, sure. And now the thing is like, if you're around 500 at the end of July and you're getting to the trade deadline, like you're in the mix for a playoff berth. Right. So I think that's what the hope is that you can get through those 4 months and then potentially make a trade. Their farm system is good. It just doesn't have the like sure bet impact guys that it had when they went to the World Series, right? There's no Bryant, there's no Wilson Contreras, there's no Anthony Rizzo, there's no Kyle Schwarber that's right there. Now, there are a couple of guys that could improve. They could be pretty good players. I think they're going to have a lot of guys that end up being big leaguers out of that farm system. But that's the problem, is that we don't know where the impact is. So if Cody Bellinger bounces back and is what he was, in his MVP caliber years, or the year he won the MVP, like that would be a huge boost. That would be the impact guy. And then you have to see them try and extend him. But I think that's kind of where the Cubs are, is that they're in this kind of soft middle ground while they wait for the next group of prospects to come, and they identify who's going to be those stars that really help carry them, which are likely to come from outside the organization.
Well, let's jump back to the AL Central. Let's start there with our incredible predictions, and we encourage you to bet your kids' college funds on what we say now. And
I said, just mail me the check with them.
Yes,
because I know it sounds like college is pretty expensive. I could use the money.
Yes, well, that's true. That's very true. You know what? That's a great point. That's not a good point. That's a great point. But AL Central, I am going to the White Sox. Call me a homer, and I mean that in a Simpson sense. But Cleveland's really good for that division anyway, and the Twins are good, right?
Yeah, I think those are the three. For sure. I think Kansas City is actually kind of an interesting team. They have young talent, but I don't think they're quite ready for prime time, although they've gone through a big change in their pitching development. But I picked the White Sox as well. I think Cleveland is a really fun team. They run the bases well. They make a lot of contact. I'm just not sure how sustainable that offense is. They have very good pitching, and they have a very deep farm system. The Twins are going to be good. Carlos Correa coming back is a huge boost for them. They're excited to have him. He has a tremendous amount of impact on a clubhouse. He's just like how you would draw up a leader is Carlos Correa, and a modern baseball thinker. Like, he's awesome, but I think they're just a little short talent-wise. I think the White Sox have the highest end talent in the division, and I'm going to bet on them being a little bit healthier. So I picked them as well.
So we both have the White Sox. In the West, Astros, maybe they do it again, maybe they don't. Verlander goes bye-bye. I just can't not pick the Astros.
Yeah. Their rotation is really good. And even losing Verlander, they have, Lance McCullers Jr., Framber Valdez, who was brilliant last year, Christian Javier, who, started 2 combined no-hitters last season, including one in the World Series. They're really good. Their lineup is good. They're not quite as deep as they have been. And the thing is that Seattle is also a really good team. And they made a couple of quiet moves this winter, and adding Teoscar Hernandez and Colton Wong that have a chance to have an impact. So I'm going with Houston too, but I would not be surprised if Seattle passes them. And one other team in that division to keep an eye on is Texas. Their health is a risk with them. Yeah, they have spent something like $800 million over the last 2 years in free agency. Now, they signed Jacob deGrom as a free agent. They added Nathan Eovaldi, who's been a really good starter for a long time. But they have some talent there. It's just that their pitching has a pretty long injury history. If those guys were to stay healthy, they could be a bit of a surprise. But that's a team that I think is worth just kind of keeping an eye on. But as it is, I have them quite kind of close to the Angels, is right around 500.
When I was a little kid, the Orioles were really good. They haven't been good since I was a little kid, and I'm really old. I'm going, a bit of a homer setup here too, just as an Orioles fan as a kid. Earl Weaver is still dead. Boog Powell's not coming back. But in the upset of upsets, the O's win the East. Now go ahead and actually pick a winner.
Did you want me to do the Chuck Thompson Ain't the Beer Cold too?
There you go. Ain't
the Beer Cold.
There you go.
I think it's the Yankees. I still think it's the Yankees in that division. I think the Orioles are probably the 4th best team. They're young, but they just did not do enough to capitalize on that this being their moment. It feels like they're still setting up to be another year away. And the top of that division is really strong. The Yankees are still really good. Toronto is an excellent team. Toronto's the kind of team that can be a real problem in the playoffs. Like they have a ton of talent on that roster. I love some of the moves that they made this winter to get better defensively in the outfield too. I think they're going to be a good squad. And Tampa Bay is still a really, really good team. They did not do what they wanted to in addressing their offense this winter, but they're going to pitch. They're going to catch the ball. And if Brandon Lau was healthy, they should have enough offense. So I think the Orioles are probably more like fourth or even behind Boston when it's all said and done. But I don't think that's an indication of where Baltimore's future is heading. Because in another year, they very well, if they add some players externally, they could be at the top of the division.
NL Central, it's not the Cubs. It feels like the Cardinals or the Brewers again. I think the Cardinals do it. I think the Cardinals clip the Brewers and they win the division.
So I'm picking Milwaukee. And I think a lot of it has to do with their top three starters. The one concern I have with St. Louis's rotation is, again, they don't miss a whole lot of bats. And it makes them pretty defense dependent. I obviously love the corner infielders they have. There are some huge question marks about how Wilson Contreras can handle a pitching staff. It's the reason why he's not a Cub. He was not a very good defender. And this is going to be, if you believe everything that has been said and written about Yadier Molina over the course of his career, this has a chance to be the antithesis, although you end up with a guy who's a really good offensive catcher. So I think Milwaukee has three outstanding starting pitchers. I think their lineup is a little bit better, a little deeper than it was a year ago. They need a little bit more out of Christian Yelich. He doesn't need to be MVP Christian Yelich. If he could just be like Miami years Christian Yelich, it would be a big help. But I like where they're at, and I think they have the best manager in the game, Craig Counsell.
And if we go back out west, if it's not the Dodgers, it's the Padres. I like the small town story. I'm going Padres in the West.
I'm going Padres too. I just think that this is their time. I mean, they beat the Dodgers in the playoffs last year. They have premium talent. They have a tremendous manager in Bob Melvin. And I think the Dodgers took a little bit of a step back. And listen, that division is tougher too. I mean, the Giants, I think we're all kind of sleeping on because they didn't add the big fish. You know, they tried to get Correa and the physical kind of did them in. They tried to get Judge and the Yankees swooped in at the end. But they are still a solid team. And Arizona is coming. Like, they have really impressive young talent. And they have three young core guys, two of which are going to be in the big leagues for most of the year, that kind of rival what the Cubs had in 2015 and 2016. So that's a team that's worth keeping an eye on, but they're probably a year too early. So I think, and I think even so, like, we would be talking about them as a wild card team if they did get to the dance sooner than expected. The Padres are really strong. They're deep. They're talented. I think the Padres win that division too.
In the East, just based on your story of the hanging $8 million shark, I'm going to the Mets.
Yeah, there's nothing says division winner like shark suspended and formaldehyde.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm going to take the Braves, though.
You got the Braves.
The Braves are the class of that division. That lineup is tremendous. They have so many of their key guys locked up for long term. They're going to be good for a long time. I just think that that's a really, really talented, good team. And I think they're going to be one of the favorites to win the World Series this year, too.
Well, that's interesting. So is that your pick coming out of the NL, the Braves?
No, I don't think so.
All right, Braves.
I got to figure those out, huh?
We're not going to go deep on the wild cards. Obviously, it could be a wild card, but if we just go with our picks for division winners, I got a White Sox Padres World Series. In the National, you got the Braves, Milwaukee, or the Padres. You must pick one.
Yeah, I think I would probably take Atlanta out of that. I think Atlanta would be the one.
Yankees, White Sox, or Astros?
I'll go Yankees. I think they're the Cole Rodon tandem at the top of the rotation, and I think they're an excellent defensive team. They're not like most Yankee teams we've seen for years and years. Like, they can really catch the ball. There's a little bit of power there. I think if they're healthier in the postseason, it's a different story than what they had last year.
Yankees, Braves, your World Series is a ratings winner. Mine is enough to cause an ulcer for the Fox executive suite for the White Sox and the Padres. All right, last word before we go with you, Mike Ferrin. 25, God, it's hard to believe, 25 years ago, maybe a little longer, I worked with Dave Wills for a brief period of time. And Willsy was a great guy. And, we stayed in touch a little bit, but not a lot through the years. But I heard so many good things from people in baseball in the past week plus since he passed. And I just wondered if you wanted to say anything about Dave Wills.
Oh, yeah, I know. I appreciate that because I've known Dave, or I knew Dave for more than 20 years. When I was producing when you were at WGN, Dave was still doing White Sox pre and post.
Right.
And that's the first time I met him. And I relished our conversations together. He was so the only thing that ever stood out that was so weird is Dave was so Chicago. Yep. You know what I mean? He was the guy went to Elmhurst College, he was a huge personality and a super easygoing guy. He was somebody that you wanted to be around. He was somebody that I gravitated towards when we were at the ballpark. He was just beloved. And I got that news about an hour before first pitch of a game that I was doing on Sunday in Texas. And I just it was like a gut punch. And I've been talking a lot to the Rays broadcasters here over the last couple of days, and they are just unbelievably shaken by it. He was a tremendous person. He was a great broadcaster too. I mean, he was one of the best play-by-play guys in the game for my money. And it just it was so painful, Steve, to hear that news because Dave was just meant so much to so many people, and I can't believe he's gone. Just can't believe he's gone. God
bless his family. Still a young family, and he was a great dad and a great family guy on top of everything else. And that's not easy to do, as you well know, from a baseball standpoint and the schedule, the way it takes your time away from your family, but he managed to keep it together. He's missed. He's missed, and he will be missed. He was one of those guys who was as good as you hope he would be if you were a fan and you heard him back in the old days with the White Sox or with the Rays. Good man. And if Heaven has a play-by-play team, I like him in the number one chair right now.
Yeah, I think he's certainly newer than some of the other guys.
That's true.
Was that too dark?
Yeah, God, Dick Henberg can't see the field still. That's one thing that didn't get fixed. But at any rate, and by the way, Wilsey would appreciate that joke.
Yes. Oh no, he would.
Yes.
He absolutely. He was. I mean, just like a tremendous sense of humor. He was just. It really hurts, man. He was an unbelievable person.
And he did get to call a World Series or two. So I love that. Yeah, love that as well. Listen, let's plug you one more time and let you go. It's Mike Ferrin, and here I'm on Power Alley every morning starting at 9 on what Sirius XM channel?
89, MLB Network Radio.
And World Baseball Classic, where and when?
Let's see. First game that we're doing is 1:30 Saturday afternoon, and we'll have radio broadcasts of all the games at Chase Field and Pool C, which include all of the Team USA games, including the 50,000 in the crowd for Sunday night's Team USA, Team Mexico match, which is going to be epic. That's
got to be an ESPN product, I would think, wouldn't it?
No, they're doing the Fox has the television rights.
Oh, they do.
Okay. So those games are all on Fox and FS1. And I should mention they started last night. So the pools in Asia have started already. So it's worth watching. And you can see one of my favorite people and broadcasters, Tyler Mawn, is doing the games in Taiwan. He's just like one of the best baseball ambassadors in the world. It's a huge break for him. And I'm so excited for him because it's just like this is somebody that you would absolutely love. Just a tremendous human being.
Cool. Well, listen, baseball's always better when I'm hearing you doing it. So I look forward to hearing you on the World Baseball Classic and through the season on Power Alley and beyond. MLB Network Radio, 9 o'clock every day. Wherever he is in the world, he's got radio equipment attached to him. And it's surgical. It can't be switched.
Yeah. It was really hard to find a doctor to do that, but...
Mike Ferrin, thank you, buddy.
Yep.
There you go. Thank you, Mike Ferrin. MLB Network Radio, Channel 89 for Power Alley every weekday morning at 9. And Mike's doing a lot of play-by-play, and he's great at it. Hope you caught some of what he does during the World Baseball Classic. So thank you, buddy. And thank you to Ross Cochran, who puts this all together all the time. Of course, I have a charity for you before we go. A great way for you to help, in this case, a baseball cause. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City is an amazing historical place, which chronicles the careers of the greatest that never got to play the game at the highest level because of the incredible stupidity of prejudice in this country. It's the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, nlbm.org.com. Pick your dot. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Google it up if you like as well. And there's tons of ways you can help there. You could buy gear, as I have done many times. You could become a member. But it's a great way to maintain the history of some of the greatest in the game that never got their full due in this case. It's important stuff. My name is Steve Cochran. I thank you for listening anytime. We'll see you on the radio on WLS in Chicago, however you listen to radio around the world, or right back here next time on Live from My Office.
30 years plus on the airwaves, you have turned your dial to me. Now you're tuned into my podcast. It's Live from My Office, Steve. From Ithaca, New York to Carolina South, W. Cochran Steve. From Minneapolis and then Chicago twice, top-rated shows achieved. Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve Cochran Podcast Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No better place to be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Subscribe and like for free. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Live from my office, Steve. So glad you're with me. It's Live from my office, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.